How's it going?
Fine, and you?
Pretty good. Now, what can we do for you?
I'm looking for a car.
Well, you came to the right place. What kind of car are you looking for? I believe a Mercedes, right?
Yes, I'm looking for any Mercedes you have on the lot.
All right then, follow me. How's it going?
Fine, and you?
Pretty good. Now, what can we do for you?
I'm looking for a car.
Well, you came to the right place. What kind of car are you looking for? I believe a Mercedes, right?
Yes, I'm looking for any Mercedes you have on the lot.
All right then, follow me. How's it going?
Fine, and you?
Pretty good. Now, what can we do for you?
I'm looking for a car.
Well, you came to the right place. What kind of car are you looking for? I believe a Mercedes, right?
Yes, I'm looking for any Mercedes you have on the lot.
All right then, follow me.
Well, it's bigger than I thought it would be.
The E300 model is bigger and faster than the C230 model. It's more efficient and more reliable. Would you like to take it for a test drive?
Sure, why not? Is it as comfortable as they say it is?
Yes, the E300 has more leg room than the C230. It also has a bigger trunk.
Is it all-wheel drive?
Yes, sir. It is a 3.2-liter V6 engine with 221 horsepower.
Well, it's bigger than I thought it would be.
The E300 model is bigger and faster than the C230 model. It's more efficient and more reliable. Would you like to take it for a test drive?
Sure, why not? Is it as comfortable as they say it is?
Yes, the E300 has more leg room than the C230. It also has a bigger trunk.
Is it all-wheel drive?
Yes, sir. It is a 3.2-liter V6 engine with 221 horsepower.
Well, it's bigger than I thought it would be.
The E300 model is bigger and faster than the C230 model. It's more efficient and more reliable. Would you like to take it for a test drive?
Sure, why not? Is it as comfortable as they say it is?
Yes, the E300 has more leg room than the C230. It also has a bigger trunk.
Is it all-wheel drive?
Yes, sir. It is a 3.2-liter V6 engine with 221 horsepower.
Well, it's bigger than I thought it would be. The E300 model is bigger and faster than the C230. It's more efficient and more reliable. Is it as comfortable as they say it is? Yes, the E300 has more legroom than the C230. It also has a bigger trunk.
Well, what do you think?
It's faster than I thought it would be. It's a lot faster than my van.
What kind of van do you have?
A Ford?
Well, a van is more practical than a car.
Yeah, but this car is far more interesting to drive than my van.
I can imagine. The engine is more fuel efficient than you might expect.
Really? How many miles do you get to a gallon?
About 15 miles to the gallon in the city and 23 to 25 on the highway.
That is better than my van.
Well, what do you think?
It's faster than I thought it would be. It's a lot faster than my van.
What kind of van do you have?
A Ford?
Well, a van is more practical than a car.
Yeah, but this car is far more interesting to drive than my van.
I can imagine. The engine is more fuel efficient than you might expect.
Really? How many miles do you get to a gallon?
About 15 miles to the gallon in the city and 23 to 25 on the highway.
That is better than my van.
Well, what do you think?
It's faster than I thought it would be. It's a lot faster than my van.
What kind of van do you have?
A Ford?
Well, a van is more practical than a car.
Yeah, but this car is far more interesting to drive than my van.
I can imagine. The engine is more fuel efficient than you might expect.
Really? How many miles do you get to the gallon?
About 15 miles to the gallon in the city and 23 to 25 on the highway.
That is better than my van.
It's faster than I thought it would be. It's a lot faster than my van. Well, a van is more practical than a car. Yeah, but this car is far more interesting to drive than my van. The engine is more fuel efficient than you might expect.
Welcome to Unit 4 of Book, where today we're going to be talking about comparative adjectives. But first, I think it might be a good idea, to talk a little bit more about adjectives in general. Do you remember about adjectives? Adjectives are words we use to describe or modify nouns. For example, this is what? A red apple. Red is the adjective that describes the apple. Now, often in English grammar books, you're going to see that word modify. By the way, to modify means in some way to change or to even limit a noun. It's not any apple, it's the red apple. It's not any idea, it's the good idea. So that word modify means to change or to limit the meaning so that we can understand something better. But describe is really what an adjective does. Adjectives are words that make our sentences more interesting. Interesting, of course, is itself an adjective, isn't it? It modifies or describes sentences in which there are adjectives, right? Adjectives make sentences more interesting. They tell us how many, what kind, or which one. For example, they tell us how many. Oh, let me see, bananas. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I see 6 bananas. 6, in this case, is an adjective that modifies or describes bananas. How many bananas? Well, I see 6 bananas. Adjectives tell us what kind. Here's a chair. What kind of chair? It's the striped chair. The striped chair is different from the green chair, the blue chair, the red chair, the broken chair, the soft chair, etc. It's the striped chair. And adjectives tell us which one. Here, for example, we have these 2 boxes. Okay? Now, which one is which? The one furthest from me is the square box. The one closest to my head here is the rectangular box, right? A square is a geometric shape with equal sides. A rectangle is a geometric shape that has 2 sides of one length and 2 sides of a shorter length. So that one is the square box, and this one is the rectangular box. Adjectives help us to know better what it is that we are trying to describe, right? A descriptive adjective describes the noun. Now let's take a look at that sentence. Oh, first of all, a descriptive adjective. Blue. The blue bureau. And how about this one? This is the happy girl. Blue and happy are descriptive adjectives that describe the nouns bureau and girl. Now, I'd like to take a look at this fellow. The aching tooth. To ache is to hurt. Aching, oh, is my aching tooth. And what about this? This is the famous tower. Famous is an adjective that describes this tower. And what is this tower? It's the Eiffel Tower, La Tour d'Eiffel in Paris, France. Now, let's look at this sentence. A descriptive adjective describes the noun. In fact, the word descriptive itself is an adjective that comes from the verb describe. And you see in this upper sentence here, a descriptive adjective verb describes the noun. Describe is the word. Descriptive is the adjective. You can see the way that in English we form some of these words. We form the word descriptive from the verb describe. The verb is describe. The adjective is descriptive. And we are given a description of something, of this noun. So we have three forms of that word describe: the verb, the adjective, and the noun. These will be very helpful as you go along, as you want to increase your English vocabulary. You can describe things with descriptive adjectives, giving good descriptions. Let's go on. Now, how about some other modifiers? When an adjective comes from a proper noun, it's called a proper adjective, and it's capitalized. What are proper nouns? They are names of places, maybe countries, maybe people, right? So let's take a look at a couple of these. This is a garden, and it's famous as coming from England, so we call it an English garden. An English garden. English is the proper adjectives. And here is our friend Madame Butterfly that Donna so enjoys. Madame Butterfly is a Japanese girl in an Italian opera. Japanese and Italian are both proper adjectives that come from the names of the countries Japan and Italy. Now, proper adjectives aren't always the names of countries. They can be the names of people also. Here is Queen Elizabeth I of England. When she reigned in the late 1500s and early 1600s, we call that Elizabethan England. Elizabethan is a proper adjective that comes from the name Elizabeth. Queen Elizabeth I ruled over Elizabethan England during the Elizabethan age. And who was the greatest writer in Elizabethan England? Of course, it was the great poet and playwright William Shakespeare. And we still talk about what kind of drama? Shakespearean drama. Shakespearean drama was the flower of Elizabethan England. And Shakespearean comes from the name Shakespeare. Shakespeare, by the way, made the greatest contribution of any single human being who has ever written or spoken English to the growth of the English language. And someday, when you speak English very, very well, you will be able to enjoy Shakespearean plays. These are proper adjectives, right? Now, how about some other modifiers? We have definite and indefinite articles, which you may remember we introduced in Unit 9 of Book 1. These definite and indefinite articles are used to modify nouns, just like adjectives are. Definite refers to a particular person or thing. For example, this fellow here, this is a particular person. He is the man in the green sweater, right? He's a particular person, and he's wearing a particular article of clothing. I am the teacher from the American English video series. Okay? An indefinite article, however, refers to no particular person or thing. A man, an orange. This could be any man, this could be any orange. There was a man over there. There is an orange on the table. Okay? Let's take a look a little bit. Let's explain those definite and indefinite articles a little bit more clearly. Here we have a sentence: a thief broke into the house. A thief broke into the house. Now, let's take a look at that a little bit more carefully. A thief is the indefinite article. It's not a particular thief. We don't know who he is. He's just a thief. But we say the house because, using this definite article, because the house we know, right? A thief broke into the house. Let's take this story a little bit further. A thief broke into the house. He opened a window and climbed in. Then the thief stole the cat. Now, he opened a window, right? It's not the only window in the house. If it were the only window in the house, we would say he opened the window because, you know, there's no other window but the one window. So he opened some window, we don't know which one, and climbed in. Then the thief stole the cat. Now, why do we use the in this instance when initially we just called him a thief? Well, the reason is that the second time we mention him, we know which thief, right? He's the thief who broke into the house. He's a particular thief by the time we mention him the second time. Okay? So often when it starts out, we'll say, you know, a thief broke into the house, then the thief stole the cat. Not just any cat, but the cat who lives in the house. Now, other modifiers. In Book 1, Unit 17, we talked about how possessive pronouns are used as adjectives when they describe a noun. It's not just any dictionary, it's my dictionary. It's not just any cup, it's my cup. Of course, adjectives can also describe demonstrative pronouns. Do you remember what they are? This, that, these, and those, right? This referring to the cup. This is white. So in that case, the adjective white is describing this cup. But it's just actually that pronoun, this. Now how about that is red? What's that? Oh, that is the dictionary. This is white, the cup. That is red, the dictionary. Sometimes adjectives can modify or describe these demonstrative pronouns. Now, let's see. I think it's now time for us to talk about comparative adjectives. Comparative is itself an adjective, isn't it? And it comes from the verb compare. Now, what does it mean to compare things? All right, let me compare my hands. Okay, this hand and this hand. Well, both my hands have 5 fingers. They both have palms and backs. Okay, this hand and this hand. I am comparing my hands. To compare is to see what is alike about 2 things. Okay? Here are 2 other hands, right? We can compare these 2 hands that are above my head. One hand has the thumb up, the other hand has the thumb down. Okay? We are making a comparison. Comparison is the noun, compare is the verb, comparative is the adjective. Now, what does this remind you of? Isn't this just like what we did with that word descriptive? The adjective is descriptive, the verb is describe, the noun is description. Well, here now I am comparing these 2 verbs, these 2 words actually, compare and describe. And this is a comparison of 3 different forms of 2 words. Adjective, verb, and noun forms of these 2 words, compare and describe. We are comparing these 2 words. Do you understand now the meaning of the adjective comparative? Comparative adjectives are adjectives that we use when we are comparing 2 things. Okay? I think that maybe we should refer back now to the dialogue that we watched at the beginning of Unit 4. Do you remember when David goes into the used car lot, Easy Credit Cars, to talk to the salesman whom Julie had recommended to him? And they're talking about these used BMWs.
Bigger than I thought it would be.
The E300 model is bigger and faster than the C230 model.
Okay, now, what did David say? He said, well, it's bigger than I thought it would be. And the salesman answers, the E300 model is bigger and faster than the C230. Now, when David says bigger, he's using a comparative adjective. He is comparing the actual car in front of him to the car that he thought he was going to see, right? The car he thought he was going to see was not as big as the one that is actually there on the lot. It's bigger than David thought it would be. The salesman is comparing the E300 model to the C230 model. The E300 is bigger and what? Faster than the C230. Bigger and faster are both the comparative forms of the adjectives. Let's take a look at those adjectives. Big, bigger. What do we notice? ER, right? Fast, faster. What do we notice? ER. So, with one-syllable adjectives, these simple adjectives, we are going to add ER. We call any letters that we put on the end of a word a suffix. A suffix, S-U-F-F-I-X. Big, bigger. Fast, faster. Slow, slower. Red, redder. But now, what else do we notice here? Fast, faster. Slow, slower. Both of these words, we just add the ER. But big and red require something else. Sometimes we have to double the final consonant, right? You have a word like big, which has a vowel and a consonant. Red, vowel and final consonant. In these cases, we have to double the final consonant before we add the ER. Big, bigger. The reason for this I won't go into a lot of detail about, but it would change the way it's pronounced. If it was just one G, it would be biger, and that wouldn't make any sense. So we have to double that in order to keep that I sound. Big, bigger. Red, without the double D, would be reader. No, no, no. It's R-E-D-D, redder. So, add ER to these simple words to make them comparative, but with a single vowel and a single consonant, we have to double that final consonant. You'll see many examples of this as we go along. Oh, there are the two Ds from red. I thought we'd already had that. Okay? Bigger, redder. My face is redder than it was before because I made that mistake. Let's go on. Now, let's listen to the dialogue again and pay special attention to what the salesman says after he says, you know, it's bigger and faster than the C230.
Well, it's bigger than I thought it would be.
The E300 model is bigger and faster than the C230 model. It's more efficient and more reliable.
Now, did you hear that? What did he say after that line that we had said before? He said, it's more efficient and more reliable. It's bigger and faster, and it's also more efficient and more reliable. Thank you for the TV, by the way. We won't be needing that anymore. Thank you. Now, why does he say more efficient and more reliable instead of saying it's efficienter and reliabler? Well, there's an answer right there. Reliabler, efficienter. These are very awkward and difficult to say. If you have a word that's longer, like this one, efficient, it's more efficient. Reliable, more reliable. The difference is that these are words with two or more syllables. More efficient, more reliable when we have more syllables. More means a larger amount or yeah, something that's greater. So, efficient, 3 syllables. More efficient. Reliable, more reliable. But now, you might say, I don't even understand syllables. What is a syllable? Well, as you can see, syllables are groups of letters that make up the natural parts of longer words. The 3 syllables of efficient, reliable. Now, you might also say, I'm just learning this language. How am I going to ever know? Well, there's a very good answer to that. The dictionary is the place that we go to make sure of what we call syllabification, the number of syllables that there are in these longer words. When you look in the dictionary, what you'll see is, for example, the word itself has dots between the syllables. So you'll see EF dot, FI dot, CIENT, efficient. And they put those dots in between the syllables, so you can always tell. How about RE dot, LI dot, ABLE, able, reliable, efficient. So you can try to guess where those syllables are, but the more efficient and more reliable way to find out where the syllables are is to go to the dictionary and look them up. Now, exception, exception, exception. Remember, this is English, and in English there are always exceptions. Now, what are the exceptions to this rule about 2 or more syllables? To form the comparative of adjectives with 2 or more syllables that end in ly, change the y to an I and add er. So let me give you some examples of this. Lovely. Now, how would I make lovely into a comparative adjective? Well, I'm going to change, now how many syllables? Lovely. Okay? Well, sometimes you actually can say it was more lovely, but often we say change the y to an I and add er. Janine was lovelier than Jill. How about silly? S-I-L-L-Y. Change silly, 2 syllables. Change the y to an I and add er. The clown was sillier than the man. Let's take a look at that. Janine is lovelier than Jill. Now, I want you to notice something here. What's the word that I use to make this comparison? It's the preposition than. Just listen for that as we're doing the exercises later on. We use the comparative adjective and the word than very often when we're making these comparisons. Janine is lovelier than Jill. Or, for example, the clown is sillier than the man. The clown is sillier than the man. He is sillier than the man, isn't he? That word than is the word that we use to make comparisons. The E300 model is bigger and faster than the C230. Okay? Now, let's review. One syllable. Big, the comparative form is bigger. Fast, the comparative form is faster. Large, what would the comparative form of large be? One syllable word, it's larger. Of course, in that case, we just add R, don't we? It already has the E. Small, it's comparatively smaller. Now, how about two syllables or more? Except in these ly words. Efficient is more efficient. We use that word more. Reliable, it's more reliable. How about practical? Well, I'm practical, but he is more practical than I, or than I am. Practical, more practical. How about interesting? That was an interesting movie, but the movie that we saw last night was more interesting. Interesting, more interesting. Now, adjectives that end in y, whether it's ly or not, we're going to do what? We're going to change the y to an I and add er. So, funny becomes funnier. The clown was funnier than the lion tamer. Pretty. One girl is prettier than the next. Okay? Prettier. This is pretty, but that is prettier. Now, how about irregular comparative forms? These are very important because there are some words, common words, that don't add er at all, or even use that more. There's a whole different word. And one of those words is good. Something is good, but comparatively something else is better. B-E-T-T-E-R. I was good at tennis, but he was better. This is a good book, but that is a better book. That book is better than this book. Okay? Good, better. How about bad? Bad, the comparative form of bad is worse. He was a bad tennis player, but I was worse. He was a bad man, but that man was worse. Good, better, bad, worse. You might hear there's a common phrase in English, it went from bad to worse. That's when a situation is going down. It went from bad to worse. Good, better, bad, worse. Very important words. Many and much, by the way, which word do you suppose we're going to use? For both many and much, we use the word more. You remember Donna asking Clayton, how many cookies do you want? Do you want some more? How much soup do you want? Do you want some more? Many and much, the comparative term is more when we're talking about a larger amount. Okay? Now it's time for us to do some exercises. If we do many exercises, maybe then we'll do more. Now, in this first one, look at the pictures and make comparisons, right? Here are Brad and Matthew. Brad is tall. And what we notice is that Brad is blank than Matthew. Brad is tall. Brad is taller than Matthew. Do you understand? Now, I'd like you to do some of these. Brad is old. Brad is blank than Matthew. Excuse me. Thank you. Brad is old. Brad is, let me hear it. One syllable, add ER, older than Matthew. Brad is old. Brad is older than Matthew. How about this? Matthew is young. Matthew is blank than Brad. Matthew is what than Brad? You tell me. One syllable, add ER. Matthew is younger than Brad. Matthew's young. Matthew's younger than Brad, who is what? He is older than Matthew. How about this? Matthew is short. Matthew is blank than Brad. Tell me. Matthew is shorter than Brad. Matthew is short. He is shorter than Brad. Okay, here are Betty and Jean. Betty is happy. Betty is blank than Jean. What letter does happy end with? Watch out. Betty is happy. Betty is happier than Jean. H-A-P-P. Change the Y to an I and add ER. Happier. Jean is sad. So Jean is blank than Betty. And watch out, this is another one that you have to spell differently, right? Jean is blank than Betty. What are we going to do? S-A-D-D-E-R. Jean is sadder than Betty. We double that final consonant D to make the comparative form of that adjective sad. Jean is sad. Jean is sadder than Betty. Now, here we have two cars to compare, a Mercedes and a BMW. We know which one David Campbell would like, don't we? The Mercedes is new. The Mercedes is blank than the BMW. One syllable, add ER. Good. The Mercedes is newer than the BMW. Let's go on. So not only is the Mercedes new, the Mercedes is reliable. Okay? The Mercedes is blank, blank, than the BMW. Fill in the blanks for me. The Mercedes is than the BMW. The Mercedes is more reliable than the BMW. You can count on the Mercedes more than the BMW, right? The Mercedes is fast. The Mercedes is blank than the BMW. The Mercedes is than the BMW. Fill in the blank with what word? Faster. Fast, one syllable, add ER, you get faster. And the Mercedes is efficient. The Mercedes is blank, blank, than the BMW. What fills in the blanks? More efficient than the BMW. Okay? Now, here we have two countries, Spain and Iceland. Spain is hot in the summer. Spain is blank than Iceland. Fill in the blank. Spain is than Iceland. And spell the comparative adjective. Did you say H-O-T-T-E-R? Spain is hot. Hot, one syllable with a vowel with a short sound, ah, and a consonant, t. So we have to double that final consonant. So we get H-O-T-T-E-R. Spain is hotter than Iceland. Ooh, it's hot. But how about Iceland is cold in the winter? Iceland is blank than Spain. What's the comparative adjective that's going to fill in this blank? Iceland is than Spain. Colder. Iceland is colder than Spain. There were two consonants on the end, so we don't have to do any doubling, do we? C-O-L-D-E-R. Now, here we have a couple of beds. This bed is good, but that one is what? This bed is good, that one is, do you remember? Irregular now, watch out. Good, fill in the blank. Better. This one is good, that one is better. And here, looks like we have coffee and wine. Well, wine drinkers think that coffee is good, but wine is blank. You tell me. Coffee is good, but wine is better. According to who? Wine drinkers, of course. How about this one? The box is heavy, but the piano is blank. The box is heavy, but ooh, takes two to carry the piano, so we know that the piano is what? Watch out, it's got a Y on the end, right? The box is heavy, but the piano is heavier. H-E-A-V, change the Y to an I and add E-R. H-E-A-V-I-E-R. Heavier. Now, in this exercise, give the comparative form of the adjective. Hot. Tell me what's the comparative form. Good. Hotter. Did you double the T? Hot, H-O-T. Hotter, H-O-T-T-E-R. Cold. Good. Colder. Good. Better. Did you do better that time? Old. Older. Just add ER. 2 consonants at the end. Reliable. Reliable. More reliable, right? Expensive. Expensive. 3 syllables, no Y, so it's going to be what? More expensive. Costa. Eh? Happy. Two syllables, but what does it end in? Y. Happy becomes happier. H-A-P-P-I-E-R. Sad. Tell me. And spell it. Sad. S-A-D. Single vowel, single final consonant. Double the final consonant and get S-A-D-D-E-R. Sadder. A sadder but wiser girl. And bad. What is the comparative form of bad? It is not B-A-D-D-E-R, is it? It's another one of those exceptions. Bad is worse. As I told you before, there's a common English phrase, the situation went from bad to worse. Good. I hope you did well on that. Now, this time, we're going to make a sentence using the comparative form of the adjective. Follow the example, right? The particular example that I'm about to give you, okay? Let's take the word hot. Now, I'll give you a model sentence. It's hotter than I thought it would be. Hot. It's hotter than I thought it would be. Okay? Cold. Same sentence, but use the comparative form of cold. It's colder than I thought it would be. We haven't talked about would yet, but would is another one of those modals, right? Like could, should. It's colder than I thought it would be. How about good? It's better than I thought it would be. Old. It's older than I thought it would be. How about reliable? Watch out. It's more reliable than I thought it would be. How about expensive? Let me hear you. It's more expensive than I thought it would be. How about bad? Did you remember the word for the comparative form of bad? It's worse than I thought it would be. I knew it would be bad, but it's worse. than I thought it would be. Now, in this case, look at the pictures and make a comparison. We have a truck and we have a car. Practical is our adjective. So take a look. A truck is more practical than a car. Try another one. Faster. Now you tell me, a blank is faster than a blank. Right? What? Make a sentence. A car is faster than a truck, probably. Now, here we have a cat and a dog, and our adjective is friendly. Okay? Make a comparative sentence for me, right? Remember what we do with ly adjectives, right? Let's see. Did you get this? A dog is friendlier than a cat. A dog is F-R-I-E-N-D-L. Change the Y to an I and add E-R. Safe. Well, in this particular case now, right, is the car or the bike safer? Tell me. A bike is safer than a car. Okay? Because the car is getting smashed with that wrecking ball. How about this? Here we have milk and we have wine. And our adjective is strong. Okay? Tell me. You don't have to use any articles at all in this sentence. Okay? Just is than Wine is stronger than milk. Wine is stronger than milk. Listen to television commercials in English if you'd like to hear some of these comparative adjectives. I always tell my students I would have them go and find some of these words in advertisements. I remember one where there was a laundry detergent that was described as stronger than dirt. That's where you'll find a lot of these comparative forms. Now let's take a look at these two fellows. Here we have Danny and Sam. And one of them is described as being smart in a way that the other is not. Make a comparative sentence for me using the comparative form of smart about Sam and Danny. Can you tell? I'll give you a clue. That little light bulb there that's bouncing around Sam's head indicates intelligence. Okay? Right? Sam is smarter than Danny. Sam is smarter than Danny. Now let's see if Danny has something on Sam, though. Well, old. Looks like Danny's kind of losing his hair there, doesn't it? So maybe we can tell from that that Danny has been, was born earlier than Sam. See how much you need that word than? Danny is older than Sam.